All right, everybody, we are live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to those who have joined us tonight. God has blessed us with a beautiful sunny day in Apex, and looks like the weather's going to be just as good for the rest of the week. So we're excited about that. I will now call the order to Apex Town Council regularly scheduled meeting for Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. And before we move on with business, let's do a roll call attendance. When I call your name, council members, please respond with here or present. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier.
Here.
Thank you. Council Member Killingsworth.
Here.
Thank you. Council Member Gant.
Here.
Thank you, sir. Council Member Stallings.
Here.
Thank you, ma'am. And Council Member Mahaffey.
Here.
Thank you, sir. All right. So just remind all the council members when you are making a motion, just please say your last name. And that's the same as well with our second any motion. So we'll move now to our invocation. And what I wanted to do tonight, we are in Women's History Month. And Yesterday was International Women's Day, and many achievements and sacrifices that has been done by our women, accomplishments throughout the nation and the world. And I wanted to celebrate and honor those who have transitioned and are not with us today. So with that, they have done quite a bit for us to be able to actually have this meeting tonight and enjoy the quality of life that we have. So what I want to do is honor those women tonight with a moment of silence. So please join me. Thank you very much. Will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? If you would please post the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. All right, so we have a pretty light agenda, looks like, if we can move everything forward in a good time here. So let's go ahead and get started tonight with our presentations. And the first presentation 1, is Jason Morado, Senior Project Manager, ETC, presentation of the Citizen Satisfaction Survey results. So Mr. Morado.
So Mayor, real quickly, I'll just say a couple words before Mr. Morado speaks.
Okay, thank you.
He is here to present the results of our Citizen Satisfaction Survey. We're really excited about the results. I think you guys will be happy with those too. We did post the results to our website this afternoon. So after Mr. Morado's presentation, we'll be sharing those with our residents and followers on social media. You'll see some of that stuff coming out tonight. And with that, I will turn it over to Jason.
Great, thank you. My name is Jason Morado. I'm with ETC Institute, and ETC is a marketing research firm based in Olathe, Kansas, which is in the Kansas City area. And the thing we specialize in is conducting community surveys for local governments. And we just finished for the second time conducting a resident survey for the town of Apex. So today I'm going to go through the results. If you've seen the full report, it's very detailed and very comprehensive. So today what I'm going to go through are really the high-level key findings from the survey. So I mentioned that ETC is based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. We've been doing this type of work for over 35 years. And in the last 10 years alone, we've conducted surveys in more than 900 communities in 49 states. And that includes a lot of work throughout the state of North Carolina. Just within the past few months, we've finished administering surveys for the city of Raleigh, city of Durham, Durham County, and High Point. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. I'll go over the purpose and methodology of the survey, what I call the bottom line up front are our main conclusions from the survey, and then I'll go through the major survey findings to show how we came to those conclusions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. So there are several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with major town services, and also to determine what Apex residents feel are the top priorities for the community. With this survey, we're also able to compare these results to the 2017 survey. There were a few changes to the survey, but a lot of the questions are the same ones we asked 3 years ago. And that's typical for these resident surveys, is we keep a lot of the questions the same year after year so that you can measure the trends over a long period of time. And then also with the survey, we're able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So this survey was administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly select residents throughout the town. And that's our standard methodology for these types of surveys. Our goal is to receive at least 400 completed surveys. And just like in 2017, we had a very, very good response. We actually ended up with 523 completed surveys. And one thing we always do when we administer these surveys is as we're collecting the data, we monitor the demographics of survey respondents to make sure it reflects the actual population of the town. So we make sure we have a good representation by key demographic areas, such as age, race, ethnicity, and gender. And the results of the 523 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.3%. So essentially that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 4.3% from what we're reporting. So the results aren't perfect, but really it's a very small margin of error. Here we have a map of the town. The red dots are households that completed a survey. So we had a good distribution throughout the town, and this distribution is very similar to what we had in the last survey. So here are our main conclusions from the survey. We found that residents have a very positive perception of the town of Apex. 96% of respondents rated Apex as an excellent or a good place to live, and 94% rated Apex as an excellent or a good place to raise children. This is a question we ask on almost all of our surveys that we conduct all over the country, and these are some of the very, very highest numbers in the country. We also found that the town is moving in the right direction, and the reason we say that is that the satisfaction ratings have either increased or stayed the same in 69 out of 88 areas compared to 2017. And the thing that's especially impressive about that is that the ratings were very, very high in 2017. And then we also found that satisfaction with town services is much higher in Apex than it is in other communities. You rated above the US average in 53 out of 55 areas and above the regional average in all 55 areas. We'll look at this in more detail in a little bit, but there's a couple of areas I especially wanted to point out. When you look at the overall quality of town services, you rated 44% above the US average, 39% above the regional average. And this is one of the most important questions on the survey, because here we're asking residents to take into account all the services that you're providing and really give an overall satisfaction rating. Another area that really stands out is customer service from town employees. You rated 48% above the US average and 50% above the regional average. And then we found the top overall priorities are management and planning for growth and development, managing traffic, and maintaining streets and sidewalks. So first we'll look at some general perceptions that residents have of the town. Here we ask residents to rate their perceptions in a number of different ways. And if you look at the top of this chart, nearly all residents gave either excellent or good ratings to the town of Apex as a place to live, as a place to raise children, and as a place to call home. For all these areas, less than 10% gave a rating of below average or poor, which is a 1 or a 2 on a 5-point scale. This is another question about perceptions of the town. Again, one of the things that really stands out is how few residents are dissatisfied. It was less than 10% in all 5 categories, and in most of the categories, it's less than 5%. If you look at this top row, over 90% of residents are either very satisfied or satisfied with the overall quality of services provided by the town, and that's compared to only 1% who are dissatisfied. And that 90% plus satisfaction rating for the overall quality of services is one of the very highest in the country. This was the very first question on the survey. Here we asked residents to rate major categories of city services. So for this question, we're asking residents to rate these areas at the big picture departmental level. And then later on in the survey, we ask about some more specific areas within some of these categories. So once again, the positive ratings far outweigh the negative. The only areas that have significant levels of dissatisfaction at all are managing traffic and managing and planning for growth and development. But even for these areas, you have more positive ratings than negative. And there's also been a big increase in satisfaction compared to 3 years ago. If you look at this bottom row, you can see that 37% of residents were dissatisfied with planning of growth and development. In 2017, that number was 47%. And if you go to the top of this chart, you can see that the highest rated areas are police and fire services, customer service from town employees, and parks and recreation facilities and programs. Here we ask residents to rate their perceptions of safety in a number of different ways. and you can see just about all residents feel safe in Apex. If you look at this second row down, 96% of residents feel either very safe or safe overall. And if you look at this third row, even at night, over 90% of residents feel safe. Here we have a map of the town, and what we did here is we broke the results out by census block group. So these are very, very small areas, and what this does is it tells us if residents in different parts of the town are rating services differently or of different perceptions of the town of Apex. We create a map like this for every question on the survey asked on a 5-point scale. So there are about 80 maps in the report. This one is for the overall quality of town services. And you can see not only is the entire map blue, but most of it is dark blue, which is the highest possible rating. So this tells us that residents in all parts of the town are satisfied with the overall quality of services. Sometimes what happens is, even if the results are very positive overall, once you break it into these smaller geographic areas, you see some pockets maybe where some residents are dissatisfied. But here you can see that's not the case at all. The ratings are positive all across the town. So I mentioned earlier that Apex is moving in the right direction. So in 2017, the results were very, very good. So I was really impressed that they actually improved in so many areas this year. Compared to 2017, the satisfaction ratings have increased in 52 out of 88 areas. They've stayed the same in 17 areas, and they've only decreased in 19 areas. And there also were 19 areas that had a significant increase in satisfaction. So by significant, I mean an increase of 5% or more. Only 5 areas that had a decrease of 5% or more. So here are the areas with the biggest increases in satisfaction since 2017. So this includes accessibility and responsiveness of town officials. There was a 16% increase in satisfaction compared to 2017. The other most significant increases were related to leadership of elected officials, overall management of traffic, which is one of the highest priorities in the 2017 survey, the effectiveness of the town manager and appointed staff, ease of travel from home to school and work, management and planning for growth and development. That was also one of the highest priorities on the 2017 survey, maintaining traffic signals, the town of Apex as a place to work, access to information about current programs and services, and then council decision process. The only areas that had a decrease of more than 5% compared to the last survey were managing stormwater and maintaining sidewalks. And then here are comparisons for major categories of services. You can see in most areas there's been at least a little increase in satisfaction. The biggest increases were related to management of traffic. Only 38% were satisfied in 2017. Now it's up to 50%. And there also has been an 8% increase in satisfaction with planning for growth and development. So we also compared your results to other communities. So for these next few charts, the blue line are the satisfaction ratings for town of Apex residents. The red line are the satisfaction ratings for residents in the Atlantic region, which includes the state of North Carolina as well as some surrounding states. And then the yellow bar are the satisfaction ratings for residents from all across the US. So I put blue arrows by the places where you rate significantly higher than both the regional and national average, which you'll see is most areas that we asked on the survey. This first chart's for major categories of services. And you can see you rate it much higher than other communities when it comes to overall quality of police and fire. Customer service is one of the areas that really stands out. You have a 90% satisfaction rating. The regional and national average are only around 40%. You also have much higher ratings than other communities when it comes to parks and recreation, facilities and programs, communication with the public, enforcing codes, maintaining streets and sidewalks. Managing traffic and managing and planning for growth and development were your lowest rated areas, but you can see that's common in other communities as well. You're pretty much on par both regionally and nationally in those two categories. For perceptions, you can see in all these areas your rate significantly higher than other communities. There's two that I especially want to point out. This top row, the overall quality of town services. You have a 92% satisfaction rating, which is one of the highest ratings in the country. The regional and national average are only around 50%. And then another one that stands out is this bottom row. You have a 78% satisfaction rating when it comes to the overall value received for tax dollars. Now, compared to some of the other categories on the survey, that doesn't rate quite as high compared to some of the other areas you were rated on. But you can see that the regional and national average is only at 37%. So for this question, a 78% satisfaction rating is an extremely high number. And then we asked about 3 aspects of town leadership: quality of leadership by elected officials, effectiveness of town manager and appointed staff, and then opportunities for citizens to provide input. And in all 3 areas, your satisfaction rating was about double both the regional and national average. And then we have a question about different aspects of customer service. We saw earlier that the overall level of customer service was very high. This question was asked of residents who have actually had contact with the town recently, and we asked them to rate 5 different aspects of customer service. And you can see in all 5 areas, the ratings are much, much higher than other communities. So now we'll take a look at priorities. This is something we call the important satisfaction rating. And this analysis is based on 2 different types of data. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with services, which is the type of charts we've been looking at. And then the follow-up question is which services are the most important for the town to emphasize. So the idea behind this is that those areas that have a combination of a low satisfaction rating, but also are rated as with high levels of importance, should be the highest priorities. So you're factoring in both of those aspects, both the satisfaction levels and the importance. This first chart's for major categories of services, and the top 2 priorities are management and planning for growth and development and managing traffic. Those were the top 2 priorities last time as well. But we saw earlier there's been significant satisfaction increases in both of these areas. The third highest priority is maintaining streets and sidewalks. This table is all specifically related to maintenance. The top 3 priorities are just the overall maintenance of town streets, street lighting, and then efforts to manage stormwater. This chart's related to emergency services. The top overall priority is visibility of police in neighborhoods. And then for parks and recreation, the top priority is the number of walking and biking trails that are available. So I've got a few other findings to take a look at. Here we asked residents to rate the current pace of development. So for retail, office, and industrial development, the top choice was that the current pace of development is just right, which is the yellow bar. For multifamily residential development and single-family residential development, the majority of respondents feel like the current pace is too much. We asked residents about future priorities that should receive the most emphasis over the next 2 years. And you can see the top choices were preservation of natural resources, investment in infrastructure, and downtown improvements. And then here we asked residents to rate various strategic goals. The one rated as the most important was having a safe community and reliable infrastructure. Over 70% of residents picked that as either their first or second most important out of these 5 goals. And the second most important was environmental leadership and responsible development. So just a quick recap, we saw that residents have a very positive perception of the town. There were a lot of examples of that in the report. We also saw that things are moving in the right direction, which is especially impressive considering how good the ratings were in 2017. They've actually somehow gotten a little better in most areas. Satisfaction with services overall is much higher than other communities, especially when it comes to the overall quality of services and customer service from town employees. Value received for tax dollars is another area where your ratings were significantly higher than other communities. And the top overall priorities were management and planning for growth, managing traffic, and maintaining streets and sidewalks. That's everything that I had. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but obviously the results are really, really outstanding. Any way you look at it, it's just overall satisfaction ratings are high. They've improved compared to 3 years ago, and then compared to other communities. Obviously, you're setting the standard in a lot of different categories. So with that, does anyone have any questions or comments?
Looks like we have one question, but before you go, I just want to let you know, Jason, you're invited to every meeting we have to kick us off in a meeting like this, man. This is great. Looks like Councilmember Happy has a question, and then we'll, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I was curious, can you tell me over what time period were these answers collected last year?
It was in December and January. Yeah, so the survey was mailed at the very, very end of November.
So before COVID hit. Okay, and to follow up, have you seen any other trends nationally that would kind of mirror our improvement? I'm wondering if this improvement is specific to us, or are we riding a wave along the East Coast or nationwide or something?
I mean, it varies quite a bit. And just this wasn't before COVID. This was just this past December and January. So we
December 2020. January 2021. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's right. We just finished administering it a couple months ago, or a little over a month ago. I mean, the ratings, some areas have had increases in satisfaction, some decreases. I would say overall the ratings have decreased a little bit, more so than increased, which is understandable considering everything that's happened over the past year. We certainly don't normally see increases like this, just pretty much across the board. Especially given everything that's happened over the last year. So this is definitely better than normal, most other communities.
And last question before I'll give up the floor here. I see one of the attachments here is a whole list of comments that people gave that'll be interesting to go through. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'm curious, since this was post-COVID, were there any comments specifically about COVID and the response of the town or the region that would be interesting for us?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I think there were probably a few here and there, but nothing. There weren't a lot of the same comment about COVID. Nothing that really stands out.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Stallings.
Yes, thank you for the report, and it's full of a lot of good news for sure. And I think some of the trends probably aren't surprising to us that we need to continue to work on, or that our residents are concerned about. So, but thank you for validating that and affirming that. I wanted to ask, and maybe you said it and I missed it. In terms of the Atlantic region, how is that defined? I'm assuming sort of the Atlantic states or Southeast, but could you define that a little more for me?
Yeah, the states that are included are listed in the reports.
Okay.
State of North Carolina and a few surrounding states. I forget what all is included, but it is listed. It's about 4 or 5 states that we consider the Atlantic region.
Okay, and just one comment too. Thank you for adding our strategic goals. My colleagues probably know I bring up our strategic goals a lot, but we worked really hard in developing them, and I think they really do reflect our values. And thank you for including that in the satisfaction survey.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, any more comments for Mr. Morato or questions? All right, I'm hearing none. Thank you again for the presentation. Stacy, thank you for conducting us. And I just want to recognize our staff. I mean, when you look at these ratings and the great job and the feedback from our community members, it's our staff and the leadership there that keeps us moving forward. So thank you for all your work.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right, we'll move now to presentation 2, Mr. Roy Jones, CEO of Electric Cities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, super. Well, first of all, I'm glad I followed that presentation because that was some fantastic news. And I know everybody focused on the wonderful things that are going on in Apex, and it shows you clearly y'all are moving things in the right direction. So congratulations on the survey results. I guess this is the night of, the gift that keeps on giving, because I also have some good news here I want to share with you all. Each year we look across our public power communities and identify of the 72 public power communities in North Carolina who we truly believe are leaders and are a model for other public power communities to emulate. And there's 2 awards that I want to present you all with tonight. But before I do that, I do want to say one thing, Mr. Mayor, and to the City Council. You know, our organization is an organization that truly tries to stay focused on our members and get their input on issues and direction that we need to head as public power communities. And so I just want to say the involvement that we have with Sean, with Vance, with Eric, on our Board of Commissioners, our rate committees, our technical committees that we have is invaluable as they participate in that and provide their perspective. And so I just want to say thank you for continuing to allow them to participate in all of those meetings with us. So the 2 areas that I do want to present the awards on in tonight, first of all, is grid modernization. And just listening to the survey results and talking about the investments in infrastructure and planning for the future, well, this award is aligned perfectly with what you all just heard in that survey results. The grid modernization category is really focused on communities that are investing in infrastructure, technology, and all of that being focused on providing safe, reliable power, and quite frankly, you know, preparing for and meeting the customer's expectations. And there were 2 things that you did this past year, albeit in a COVID year, that were significant. First of all, one of your oldest substations was upgraded and rebuilt. I know that was a significant capital investment that you made in your infrastructure, but that's one of the areas clearly as you began planning for the future that was noticed because you guys have a tremendous amount of growth in Apex. The other area is a tool that allows your operations folks to really identify where there's outages and be able to hone and pinpoint and target and quickly get to those outages, get whatever problem existed remediated, and get the customer's power restored quickly. It's called, the acronym is SCADA, and it stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. That's a mouthful, I know, but it truly allows the operators and the dispatchers to see where the outage is at, be able to open up breakers to isolate the lines or segments of equipment remotely. That then allows the crews to get in there, work on those lines, and then get power restored more quickly. And I will say this, when we talk about the number of outages per year and the duration of the outages, the public power communities across North Carolina repeatedly outperform the cooperatives and the investor-owned utilities in this area. So all of the things that you're doing, whether it's the new substation, whether it's the SCADA, all of that's focused on low cost, reliable power and delivering it 24/7 to your customers. The other area is in workforce development. And I know you all recognize how critical it is to continue to attract and retain your workforce. And you guys are doing a fantastic job with that. I know I've had a lot of conversations with Eric about y'all's pay for performance program, the advancement opportunities, but it also starts with some of the things that you all are doing with some of the schools and specifically with Durham Tech. You know, those are our future line workers. They are our future customer service representatives. You know, they are our future workers, to be perfectly honest. And so working with Durham Tech to bring curriculum, mentoring, and even at times equipment, you know, hands-on demonstration of things, those are invaluable because what you're doing is you're energizing and motivating and showing those students that they have a career path. And I think you even all have recently hired the first lineman, female lineman out of that program. And to my knowledge, there's only one other public power community that has a female line worker. So y'all are the second in the state to have a female line worker. So congratulations on that. The other thing is continuing to train your workforce. You know, I've been around these line workers a long time. These individuals are truly professionals at what they do. It's just amazing at the accuracy and the speed and the safe, you know, practices at which they work. But all of that comes about through training. And you all have a career training curriculum that takes that individual that's just coming into the job place and working, and it allows that individual to work safely, to grow, to train, to take classrooms, test, and then advance all the way up through their career. The highest level of a line worker is a journeyman line worker, and they call it a journeyman card. And that is a program that's registered with the state of North Carolina. And when you achieve that highest level, you get this journeyman card from North Carolina. And it takes about 8 years for an individual to go from that first entry-level job up to being a line worker. So a tremendous commitment, and you all offering that training and that opportunity to advance, to get pay increases, because to be perfectly honest, that's what folks are working for, right? They want to provide for their families, and they want to have those opportunities to grow and develop and provide more. So the things you all are doing in the workforce to not only reach the younger generation, but to keep the workforce you have is fantastic. And as I said a while ago, when you think about public power communities have less outages per year, and when you do, you get power restored more quickly, that's because you got a trained workforce. That's what brings that about. So congratulations to all of you, to your employees, for the fantastic job that they do. I wish I was there in person. I look forward to the day that we are able to get in the council chambers and meet face to face again. I think folks are virtual weary, but we're getting close. We got vaccines that are really starting to roll out. We hope, don't hold me to this, but we hope that we're going to be able to have our annual Electricities Conference in person in August. This year, it is in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Folks may scratch your head and wonder, why is it down there? But we have in our public power communities, we've got members in Virginia and South Carolina, and then obviously our membership here in North Carolina. So right now the plan is to hold it in person in August, and in June we'll make our final decision on doing that or not. But hopefully we're able to do it. Hopefully we'll see you all there in August. So Mr. Mayor, thank you for your time and congratulations again.
All right, Mr. Jones, thank you for another report. Great news here for Apex. And I do have the hardware. It was sent ahead, I guess, right here. I just want to show it.
Great.
It says presented with honor to Apex for exceptional achievements in the areas of grid modernization, workforce development, awarded on February 9th, 2021 by Electric Cities of North Carolina, the energy behind public power. So thank you so much. We celebrate it. And again, our staff, wonderful job, Mr. Newman and his team. Yeah, they do amazing work. So we're blessed in our community to have them.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir.
Thank you all. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. All right, we now move to our consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. So with that, I have not received any updates or changes to the consent agenda. No changes. So with that, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I make a motion to accept. Councilmember Stallings.
Thank you.
Second.
All right,
Second, I'm happy.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Any discussion? All right. We'll do a roll call vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier.
Aye.
Thank you. Council Member Killingsworth.
Aye.
Thank you. Council Member Gant.
Aye.
Thanks. Council Member Stallings.
Aye.
And Council Member Mahaffey.
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously. All right. We now move to setting of the meeting agenda. Again, I have not received any updates or recommended changes. With that, is there a motion to accept the regular meeting
Motion
agenda?
to approve, Gant.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gant. All right.
Second, Mahaffey.
Second.
All right. We got second Mahaffey. All right. Discussion. All right. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier.
Aye.
Thank you. Council Member Killingsworth.
Aye.
All right, Councilmember Gant,
Aye.
Councilmember Stallings,
Aye.
and Councilmember Mahaffey.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we now move to our public forum. This is an opportunity for our community to speak and our council members to listen, and that's what we would do. We will not be making any comments after the comments presented by the community members. We do have recorded comments tonight on our agenda since we are in a virtual mode. So we'll go ahead and start with the first comments tonight. If we can have IT to play that recorded comment. Thank you.
Okay, I'll play them right now. Okay, sorry guys, I'm trying to work on playing this. Let me try a different way here.
And while IT is getting that, I do want to add, I didn't share before with this. So myself and staff do respond to members of the community that presents comments to public forum. That is feasible, of course, when we can respond with the appropriate information or correct information. So I do want to add that to the notes tonight. So thank you.
All right, I apologize everyone. I'm going to try playing this a different way here.
Not just it will make our town look better. What this public comment is from very public comment. What are the other alternatives to fund these projects? For the projects listed at the
Hey, Ms. Hoey, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you know, we're trying to get the recording and play, it appears that they're having technical difficulties. Can we move to public hearing and then come back? Or do we have to stay with?
Sure, if that's the desire of the council, that's fine.
Okay. All right, we'll give it another couple of minutes and then we'll see what happens. Thanks.
This public comment is from Darren Dexter. Mr. Mahaffey posted information on proposed bonds. Can you please provide more information on these questions? Why the need for these bonds? What are the other alternatives to fund these projects? For the projects listed that the bonds will be used. This public comment is from Darren Dexter. Mr. Mahaffey posted information on proposed bonds. Can you please provide more information on these and other questions? Why the need for these bonds? What are the other alternatives to fund these projects? For the projects listed that the bonds will be used for, when are they projected to start and when are they projected to be completed? What are the benefits for the residents? If I am going to be forced, if bond measures pass, to pay for this, how will it be a benefit for me and my family? I am looking for specifics, not just it will make our town look better. What is the status of prior
I'm going to
bonds
suggest you guys go ahead and move on. The recordings we have are a little
that were
off.
voted on and have those
As
projects
soon as
started?
we can find a recording or the originals to play, we will provide that to you. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any recorded comments for a public hearing?
There are not.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we'll go ahead and move to public hearing, and we'll come back to a public forum later in the meeting. So at this time, we have public hearing number 1, and that's by Director Diane Ken. This is a public hearing, possible motion to adopt an ordinance on the question of annexation, and it is annexation number 707.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm having trouble with both of these. Okay, can you see the public hearing slide here?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So this annexation number 707 is at 3050 Lufkin Road, which is in the eastern part of our jurisdiction. It is between the Sheets and the Summit Church Apex campus. This project is a retail and office project that has been approved for site plan, but they are hoping to get their construction plan and they need to be annexed in order to get public utilities. And so staff does recommend approval of this annexation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for Ms. Ken? All right, Councilman Mahaffey.
Thank you. When was this rezoned?
This was rezoned many years ago, at least more than a decade.
So this is a project that's been kind of idle for a while and starting back up?
Yes, it was part of the site. It was a master subdivision plan, non-residential master subdivision plan in the vicinity of Sheets here. All this planned commercial property has been there for many years.
Okay. And what's the current zoning?
It's zoned planned commercial. This is an annexation.
Okay. Any other questions for Mrs. Ken? All right, hearing none. We'll go ahead and open up a public hearing for comments on this item. And Ms. Ken, do you have any emails or any comments on your side?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you so much. With that, I'll close the public hearing, and this matter will be moved to Thursday's meeting on 3/11/21 at 5 o'clock. We'll call for a vote at that time. All right. Thank you, Ms. Ken. All right, we move now to public hearing number 2. Amanda Bunce, current planning manager, public hearing and possible motion regarding an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance related to resource conservation area in North Carolina certified sites. Thank you.
Good evening.
This amendment, like you said, is to the RCA standards for North Carolina certified sites. And currently the standard requires that all perimeter buffers, street buffers, riparian buffers, and preserved wetlands be dedicated as RCA, but not be less than 15%. And what this did not anticipate were certain sites that may be heavily encumbered by such areas. And the way the wording is, it does not allow any disturbance within, for instance, the zone 3 of a riparian buffer that the state would otherwise allow some disturbance in. It doesn't permit that because it requires it to be dedicated as RCA. So the proposal is to set a maximum amount of RCA that would have to be provided on any one site, and the proposal is to set that maximum at 35%. And the planning board heard this at their meeting last night and unanimously recommended approval. Staff also recommends approval as well. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Butts. Any questions from council? Okay, hearing none. We'll go ahead and open up a public hearing for this item. Ms. Bunce, do you have any comments on your side?
There were none received.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll close public hearing on this item, and we'll take a vote on Thursday, 3/11/21 at that special council meeting. Thank you so much. All right, public hearing 3, Ms. Shannon Cox. And this is a public hearing and possible motion regarding proposed amendments to the thoroughfare and collector street plan map related to the site known as Cash Corporate Center, south of Production Drive, Burma Drive, and north of Pristine Water Drive. So, Ms. Cox.
Good evening. So the proposed amendments this evening are all related to the Cash Corporate Center site. So what I'm showing here, this large rectangular parcel is what we refer to as Cash Corporate Center, our economic development site. South of existing Burma Drive and existing Production Drive, 1010 Road is over to the northeast, and 55 is to the southwest. The purpose of these proposed amendments is to adjust our planned network of streets according to the anticipated pattern of development in this site. We do have interest in several projects moving forward, and have a little bit more design work completed for both Burma Drive and Production Drive. And so have some new information that lead to these proposed amendments. So the first amendment is to shift the future alignment of the Burma Drive extension west, as I'm showing on the screen. And that would align closer with this property, but still allow for sight distance as you're traveling around Pristine Water Drive. The second proposed amendment is to shift the future alignment of Production Drive, which is a major collector street, from the X's to this green dash line. I do want to note that Production Drive will cross a stream in this location. This crossing has not yet been permitted. However, we do have information now that we expect the proposed alignment to minimize environmental impacts compared to our adopted plan. The third amendment is related to the east-west future minor collector street shown on our plan along these X's. The proposal here is to downgrade this future roadway to a future local connection, and actually to separate it into two roadways, one connecting these two minor collector streets, and the second extending between Burma Drive and Production Drive. And this is related to the other roadway changes, as well as trying to make sure that we have areas of a relatively large size for future development. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may. Oh, sorry. This was reviewed with Public Works and Transportation staff, police, fire, economic development, as well as administration staff. These amendments were supported by all staff. Planning staff also recommend approval, and the planning board unanimously recommended approval during their meeting last night. And now I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you so much. Questions for Ms. Cox? Councilman Gant.
Thank you, Mayor. Mrs. Cox, I noticed on the production drive one that realign the local connection one, it doesn't form a 90-degree intersection anymore. So I'm guessing the intent is not to have those. I mean, that's less important than the overall alignment. As far as like, yeah, I'm guessing if you want to do, the angle doesn't seem that far off, but it seems it's not 90 degrees anymore. So I just wanted to ask about that a little bit.
I wasn't sure which intersection you were referencing. I'm sorry.
The one that's just below the realigned future extension. Yeah, that one.
Okay. Yep. So this future local connection, and actually these X's, this extends a little too far. It would be intended to stop here. This is aligned with anticipated property boundary. It would be just similar to a residential street, except it's in a commercial area. It could even be through a parking lot. It's just intended to make sure that we provide for future connectivity. When we actually get to design, I do think that this would probably be closer to 90 degrees than what we're showing here.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none. Ms. Cox, any comments?
There were no public comments received for this item.
Okay, all right, with that, we'll open the public hearing, close public hearing, and this matter will be moved to Thursday's council meeting for 3/11/21, and to allow for public comment period and to vote. All right, so we move now to public hearing 4. And Ms. Cox.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so this item is related to proposed amendments along New Hill Olive Chapel Road. This is to address some remaining recommendations from the Regional Southwest Area Study that was completed in 2019 by the Capital Area MPO. We've been bringing amendments throughout the year to you, and have 2 corridors remaining. So we'll address one of those this evening. So there are 2 alternative scenarios for the proposed amendments. What's shown on our adopted plan currently is a 2-lane rural thoroughfare for New Hill Olive Chapel Road with 4-lane median divided facility along Old US 1 Highway and New Hill Holloman Road. We are also currently showing a future grade separation, which most likely be a bridge of the railroad tracks that are south of Old US 1, and a future local connection between New Hill Olive Chapel Road and Old US 1. Alternative 1, which is what I'm showing on the screen, would remove the future railroad grade separation as well as the future local connection. So essentially we would have an at-grade intersection with plans for future widening to the east and to the south. There are some concerns about this alternative. In the future, widening New Hill Holloman Road across the railroad tracks could be challenging. We would have to have this approved by CSX as well as NCDOT. This alternative also does not have a plan for separating vehicular traffic from rail traffic, which we've discussed in the past. This is one of those locations where it's recommended that we plan for that separation. Also, it's not consistent with the regional recommendation to upgrade this corridor and designate it as future NC 751. So there is an alternative, and this was the Southwest Area Study recommendation. As part of that study, a closer look was taken at our planned grade separation and future local connection, and some additional design work was done. And the recommendation was to shift that planned grade separation east toward the top of the screen, and actually plan for a bypass of the New Hill Historic District. So if travelers from the north wanted to reach US 1, they would kind of follow this purple line, go over Old US 1 and the railroad, and then meet back up with New Hill Holloman Road. If northbound travelers were reaching 64, they'd make the opposite movement here. This recommendation does maintain the intersection of Old US 1 Highway and New Hill Olive Chapel Road. So if travelers wanted to reach Old US 1 or New Hill, they would follow the purple to the kind of olive colored line here. So there are also some concerns about this alternative. And actually, let me show the next slide. It's a little bit of a cleaner view, so you can picture what's happening here. The planned roadway network is shown with the dotted lines, and you can see the New Hill Historic District outlined in red. So when this recommendation was brought to the public as part of the Southwest Area Study, and there were meetings and opportunities for comment, we did receive comments with concern about this recommendation, mainly the property impacts associated with this, this roadway on new location. And those comments indicated concern that such a roadway was planned to kind of protect the New Hill Historic District. Meanwhile, there's been observations that many of the historic structures have been removed or destroyed. So in the intervening time, we did work with Wake County and have capital area preservation, actually inventory, to see what structures are standing in that area. And so on the next slide, I'm going to zoom in. And just the way this worked now, north is to the left. So this is Old US 1, and this is New Hill Holloman. And you can see that each of these colored markers with a black dot indicate a structure that is no longer there. So that was in the register and it is now gone. There are still some historic resources that remain. And this double yellow line is what, if we planned to do a widening instead of a bypass, and we used our typical 110-foot section, this shows what that could look like just at a planning level without any minimization, just symmetrical widening based on the center line. So there are some resources that would be within that 110 feet. I'm going to go back to the other slide. Additional concerns about the bypass alternative or alternative 2. We were concerned that while the recommendation is to maintain an at-grade intersection here, if a bypass was built, that southern leg may be required to be closed when there's an alternative way around the railroad. In reaching out to NCDOT Rail Division, they did confirm that that is a possibility. So, even though we would like to keep that at-grade intersection on our plan, it's a possibility in the future that that could be closed once a bypass is available. Since there's a fire station here, that was considered unacceptable by the fire department in terms of being able to provide timely emergency response. We're also concerned about the impacts to the historic district if the southern leg of that intersection is removed. Finally, the town council previously considered the Southwest Area Study recommendation to widen New Hill Olive Chapel Road and voted against that. So without the 4-lane median along the corridor, the purpose of the bypass is not as substantial any longer. So based on the pros and cons of both alternatives, planning staff are recommending alternative 1, which removes the future grade separation and local connection. This recommendation is supported by staff representatives from Public Works and Transportation, Police, and Fire. It was also unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning Board during their meeting last night. And I can try to answer any questions you may have. Russell's also on the line to assist with questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gant.
Yeah, Ms. Cox, thanks for that. Can you elaborate a little bit on what would be the downstream effects of both, I guess, this action and as well as the New Hill Olive Chapel keeping that as 2 lanes? I mean, is planning staff going to come back with a recommendation that we reduce the density and reduce some of the land intensity in this area with these 2 changes?
I think that whenever we have a change like this to our thoroughfare and Collector Street plan map, it is prudent to go back and look at the future land use map and make sure that we wouldn't also recommend changes. So we would take that step. I don't think that our recommendation here would be substantial, though, as these recommendations were really to address a regional need, which is not entirely within our jurisdiction. So regionally, the recommendation is for this to serve as NC 751 and serve all the traffic coming from the south and heading toward RTP. And that is not, within our land use map.
Well, can I ask follow up? And I agree that that might change that. And it seems prudent with this change, especially if we do our own thing in this area, but Holly Springs needs to do the same thing to reduce their density and intensity that would utilize this road in the future, because otherwise it's going to be a mess. So the Southwest Area Plan, I guess, in theory, with these 2 changes will adjust their plan as well, and that may inform Holly Springs. Is that right?
So we have let Campo know that the recommendation for the 4-lane median divided facility was already denied, and that we, as staff, based on what we've learned, as well as that decision, are recommending to remove the grade separation here. The 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan is under development now. So based on these decisions that we're working through with you all, we will update Campo on the town's plans. That doesn't necessarily mean that the MTP will reflect what our local plan does. So, they'll still look at deficiencies. That information will be shared with other jurisdictions, but they don't have to match.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none, I will go ahead and open up public hearing for this item. And Ms. Cox, I think you mentioned that there were some comments presented to you.
Yes, I do have 4. The comments are all supportive of alternative 1. So I'll just preview that, and I'll go through each of these. The first is from Caitlin Hatcher. Address is 3210 Courtney Lane, Sanford, North Carolina, 27330. The current proposals regarding the transportation plan amendments involving New Hill Olive Chapel Road and New Hill Holloman Road near Old US 1 Highway directly impact my family and family land. In both alternatives, the Womble family land will be directly affected. Therefore, it only seems appropriate that we get a say in which alternative we prefer. My late grandfather, Wallace Womble, passed in September 2020, in which his estate left multiple parcels of this land to various family members. Due to the nature of Alternative 2, we believe this to be a gross waste of money and resources by the town of Apex due to the likely railroad crossing closure east of the intersection of Old US 1 and New Hill Holloman Road if there is a bypass through the Womble land below Mason Road. This will ultimately create issues for emergency services and traffic patterns, resulting in increased response times as well as longer commutes. There are also multiple utilities in which the bypass would need to cross if built, specifically a large power line, sewer line, and gas line. The planning staff's recommendation of alternative 1 is the most viable and logical option. It is my understanding that there are concerns of historical structures that would need to be moved with the widening of New Hill Holloman Road. However, there's only one historic structure existing that would be affected, the CJ Bright Store. Previous historic structures at this intersection, in reference to figure 4 from the staff report, have already been demolished, and the CJ Bright Store is one strong wind away from collapsing itself. Currently, the building is completely overgrown, barely visible from the road, and a danger due to its inevitable collapse. It is my opinion that alternative 1 is the best answer in response to accommodating future growth and all those involved. The next comment is from Elizabeth Moore at 3804 Mason Road in New Hill, North Carolina, 27562. My husband, John Moore, and I have owned a horse farm located along Mason Road in New Hill since mid-2001. We have watched the growth carefully in our area and are of the belief that further study of the transportation corridors should continue as this progresses. Therefore, we are currently in favor of the alternative 1 at this time. Thank you for all of your hard work and consideration of this project. The next comment, Dear Apex Town Council, my name is Patty Womble McKeever. I live at 3712 Mason Road, New Hill, North Carolina, 27562. The following comments concern the recommendations for the future road planning at and around the New Hill intersection. The prior proposed alternative 2 constructing a bypass around New Hill, which would cross Womble family land and essentially go directly through my house, is not logical. There are also a number of other homes that would also be negatively impacted. We do not want to bypass disturbing the small piece of tranquility we have left. We have already had some of our land taken by a power line, gas line, and sewage line, of which you would need to deal with by constructing a bypass. Not to mention the railroad issues you would likely encounter, most notably the possibility of being forced to close the main railroad crossing at New Hill. There will be environmental issues with the 3 ponds and a creek that drains into a tributary. It does not make economical, environmental, or logistical sense to put a bypass around New Hill. As for historic, there is one structure left on the 4 corners of the New Hill intersection. It is completely dilapidated and hidden by overgrowth. If you must upgrade the roads in New Hill, it is most logical to use the existing roads and widen them as in the recommendation of alternative 1. Of note, both alternatives affect Womble land, and if growth needs to be accommodated, alternative 1 is the most cost-effective, environmentally friendly, and logistically sensible choice. Thank you. And this is the last one, which reiterates several of the previous comments. So I'll just paraphrase the new information in this one. This is from Joseph Keith McKeever II of New Hill. His current address is 103 Altair Circle in Apex, North Carolina, although he grew up on Mason Road. And so the main concerns that were new in this one is the larger negative impacts on wildlife habitat and water quality associated with alternative 2, noting decreased wildlife habitat connectivity from the large amount of landscape alteration, increased water runoff from the large amount of new hard surfaces, greater construction waste entering streams and water resources that may result in more roadway accidents involving deer collisions. Again, this was supportive of alternative 1. And that ends the public comments.
All right, thank you for reading those. And we'll go ahead and close public hearing for comments at this time. And Councilman Gant, you got a question?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I had one additional question. With the change of this possible change in the New Hill Hall Chapel 2-lane decision we made, can you describe how traffic studies for neighborhoods that are like Jordan Point or wherever that did before, did they assume these kind of future roads, or are they doing traffic studies based on current roads? And would this change, if it is future roads, would this change basically be reflected in their traffic studies in the future?
I'm going to hand that one off to Russell to address.
Yeah, typically traffic impact analysis for developments are short-term analysis. So usually you're looking, like 4 or 5 years down the road. What we're looking at here is more of a long-term plan. Certainly, projects that are in the near term, you would take those into account in the traffic study. But for instance, like a bypass, you're not doing what's called transportation or traffic modeling. The modeling is actually what the Metropolitan Planning Organization does when they do their updates. I mean, they look at regional roadways, they program those in, and whether it's an at grade versus a bypass grade separated roadway, that would possibly change the results of the model.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? All right, hearing none, and there's no action on this tonight. We'll move it to Thursday's meeting 3/11/21 for public comment period and vote. So thank you, Ms. Cox. All right, we now move to unfinished business 1, and this is Ms. Jenna Schaus and John Bazio. And this is staff will present updates on the Town of Apex Wayfinding signage program.
Hi, good evening. Did my presentation pop up on your end?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm joined by, or you just mentioned this, I'm joined by John Bozio with Merge, our consultant on this project. And I'd like to provide updates on the Wayfinding signage program. And at the end, John and I are available to try to answer any questions that you may have. So this will be the final update on the Wayfinding signage program to council, because after this step, we'll be moving into the technical documentation portion of the project. So here's a quick overview, or an overview of what I'll be going through tonight. First, be providing updates on the gateways and provide a summary on the public input approach, and then a summary of the input that we received on the 3 gateway options and how staff have proposed that we respond to the public input that was received, and then share additional updates on the Wayfinding sign design package, and then walk through those updates to the package, and then request final input from town council on the sign designs, and then discuss next steps in the project. Okay, so the public input strategy that we used to collect feedback on the 3 gateway options was to create a town webpage with information about an online survey, and a paper survey was also made available. And this information, or the information about the online survey and the gateway options, was shared with the long-range planning email distribution list. It was also posted on Facebook, and flyers and a paper copy of the survey was also made available at a kiosk in front of Town Hall. And the public engagement period began following an update to Town Council on the Wayfinding signage program in December, and the specific dates were December 8th through January 8th. So now I'll briefly walk through the 3 gateway options that were presented to the public, and these are the same ones that were presented to Council at that December 1st meeting. So this is gateway option 1. This is gateway option 2. And gateway option 3. So here's this slide summarizes the public input that we received on those 3 gateway options. So 409 individuals participated in the online survey. And the results from that survey were that most people preferred option number 1, followed by option number 3, and then option number 2. And here's a summary of the comments that we received most frequently on option number 1. Many people noted that the option number 1 was simple, clean, legible, classic, traditional, and cohesive. There were also comments that people liked the use of the brick and the brick columns and like the overall design and materials that were used in that option. And also noting that apex on the top stands out clearly. And there were also comments noting that the A or the apex is too big on that sign, or that having the circle A directly beside or aligned with the apex may cause it to be read as A apex. And then there are also some comments that some individuals do not like the new logo, or specifically that the new logo should be downplayed. So in response to the public input, staff recommend that we move forward with gateway option 1. And specifically to the comments received on gateway option 1, staff recommend that the signs have been slightly modified for the primary gateway, or for all the gateways, to shift the circle A down on the brick columns. On the left is the original gateway option 1 for the primary gateway, and on the right is the updated version based on the comments received. So here the circle A part of the logo lines up with this dashed line, and on the right side it's shifted down to kind of avoid the A apex, and it also aligns with the standard for the new logo. So it's more of a centered aspect of the sign and aligns with the logo. And then here's some additional design updates since the last, or on the overall Wayfinding sign package since the last update to Town Council. So the scallop design has been incorporated into the downtown low-speed vehicular directional signs, and the historic district marker has been added to the downtown gateways. And the bike sign designs now include the new town logo with the bike apex logo gears, and we'll take a closer look at that. It's kind of hard to describe. And then the parking signs now also include the option to display the digital parking occupancy, and we'll look at that as well. And there's also a potential gateway feature for the Creekside Landing Drive Bridge over US 64. Now I'll walk through the changes to the sign design package since the last update. And just some background, the Wayfinding sign design package was shared with the stakeholder groups, the Wayfinding stakeholder groups, as well as the staff advisory committee. And this package reflects updates based on their comments and also based on a field review that we conducted a couple weeks ago, where we noticed things out in the field that caused the sign designs to need to be updated or adjusted. So this slide shows all of the Wayfinding gateways, so the town gateways as well as the downtown gateways. And the changes since the last update are that this version of the gateway, the breakaway version, has been raised because we noticed in the field that there, in a number of locations, the sign would need to be higher to be visible. And then for the downtown gateways, the historic district marker that I mentioned has been added here. This is the concept for the gateway feature for the Creekside Landing Drive Bridge over US 64. And this image shows all of the vehicular directional signs as well as the bicycle signs. So it displays, or changes since the last version, are that it displays the scallops on the downtown low-speed vehicular directional signs. And then I'll zoom in on the bike signs to show what the logo is on those. So it has the Circle A logo and then the gears around it. And that was pulled from the Bike Apex, the comprehensive bicycle plan logo, to kind of make it unique, like still have the Apex logo, but make it unique to bicycling. Okay. And then this slide shows all of the parking signs as well as the pedestrian signs. And the parking signs now include this option to incorporate or to display information about parking occupancy in the off-street parking lots. And then this sign type has also been added, and this is an obstruction screen, and it's designed to be placed in front of the electrical panel, right in front of where the EV charging spaces are at Town Hall, to kind of obstruct the electrical equipment, and also serve as a gateway feature pointing people to the strollway to access downtown. Now, I won't go to next steps yet. I'll open it up and see if Town Council has any final comments on the sign designs. And John and I are here to try to answer any questions as well. And I can scroll to different slides if anyone wants to take a closer look at anything.
All right, thank you so much, Jenna. Looks like we have a question from Councilman Gann. Let's start with you.
Michelle, thank you for that. I just wanted to ask about the bridge one, because that's the first time seeing that, and I'm wondering, is that a preliminary thing, or is there gonna be a lot more about that? Because I think that would be a high visibility feature, and I like when towns have a decorative bridge, because you see so many just boring bridges around. So, but I'm not sure about that one. So I was wondering, is this like a preliminary thing that you want to do this, and we're going to work on this one, or is this kind of what the plan is?
But this is still in preliminary. I think John can probably speak more to this because a lot of more details would be required. Right now, we're working to see if this is something that NCDOT would approve and then, or would allow. And then if so, because it's a town bridge, but it's over 64, so we would need NCDOT approval, but then there would be a number of steps before to get it all designed and then installed.
They haven't said no yet. So.
Right.
Yeah, we asked them, then we showed them the design, and sort of it's going to go a couple more steps before, it's solidified.
And this is an option where we have a proposed gateway nearby that would actually be like a sign in the ground. So it's kind of an either or. In case this one's not approved, then we have an alternative for one of the breakaway gateways. Yeah. But it would be great if we could get on the bridge if this works out, if this is a feasible option.
All right, Councilman Mahaffey.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for putting this together. This is turning out really well. I really like option one. I'm glad to see that's what we're settled on here, and I think the feedback that we've gotten from citizens has been very helpful as well. I didn't even notice that Apex thing until it was pointed out, and now I can't unsee it every time I look at the original design. So I'm glad to see that change there. And I'll echo my colleague's comments about the painted bridge. I think that's a great idea and could be a great kind of branding or value add to the community here. My first impression is a little too simple. Like, I want it to be simple. You don't want something too flashy, but that's a little too too simple for just my first thought there. I'm glad to see that we're adding the counts on the parking lots. Is there an additional cost associated with that by any chance?
There would be. So initially, the signs would be installed without to accommodate the digital. It wouldn't actually have all the components in there. And then once we have the smart parking infrastructure installed in the downtown, then that equipment would be installed.
I see. So that'd be an additional kind of upgrade later on. Mm-hmm. How do they work? Do they count the cars going and leaving?
I think it depends on the equipment. John may be able to speak more. I think it depends on how, like different approaches to how smart parking, how the data is collected and then transmitted to the sign.
The sign itself is just being designed deep enough to accept that digital component in the future when you are ready to do it. So, as long as we have enough depth, it should be fine.
Okay, great. And in terms of the digital kiosk, I think we settled on doing one digital kiosk now and an option for another later. Is that, can you remind us what the council decision was there last time?
I believe it was to start with all static, but then they're designed with the depth so that if we want to go back and make them digital, that we can.
Correct. They're both just like the parking. It's just being designed with the depth that will accept a digital screen in the future if you go back and do it.
I see. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Stallings.
Hi, I just wanted to add, I really appreciate all the work done on this as well. And I like Councilmember Mahaffey said, now that you've said Apex, I'm the same way. I'm just really fixated on that. And I was just curious on option 3, you know, the logo is actually centered under the sort of and good under the language. And I'm assuming this has already been through many layers of asking people, but was there any consideration of modifying option 1 using the logo under the words, like under of?
I believe we looked into this, and I think the idea is that it wouldn't be as visible. One thing we tried was to make it, I think actually we looked at a concept where we had a smaller one here, and then we made about the same size here. And it looked off in a way. It was like too small, like the proportions didn't seem right.
Yeah, and then with this, your actual graphic standards that you use from a marketing standpoint, by keeping it where we did and lowering it, is actually more in line with what that standard says you should do proportion and position wise.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I'll look forward to hearing more about the bridge. I really like that idea, by the way.
And I think another thing was that it might get lost. I'm trying to remember because we had the idea of having one. We had a concept of one of them here.
We get low.
And then, yeah. What'd you say, John?
It would be really low.
Okay. Yeah. And with the landscaping, it might not be as visible.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier.
Mayor, thank you. Actually, it got answered with Councilmember Stallings' question. So, but just thank you so much for staff for all that you put into this and all the input. But yeah, thanks so much, Mayor. It was already answered.
Great. Councilmember Killingsworth.
I just wanted to make a comment. I like what I'm seeing with option 1, and you know, it does definitely look better with just adjusting that logo down a little bit. It's amazing how just a short, you know, adjustment can make a big difference. Also glad to see, you know, more citizen input on this so that, you know, we can kind of finalize this. So thank you for this effort.
Great, thanks.
All right, other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. I want to thank you also. This looks great, amazing. I can't wait to see it out. Great work by staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one more slide just to kind of wrap it up with next steps.
Sure.
If there aren't any more comments. So I guess if there weren't any specific, we have a next step to update the wayfinding sign design package based on any comments tonight, but it sounds like good to move forward as is. And then following steps will be to update the sign location plan or finalize the sign location plan based on the field review that we completed a couple weeks ago, and then submit the final materials to NCDOT, and then do the technical specifications and get the design intent drawings complete, and then develop final cost estimates and a phasing plan to implement this project. And then the plan is to complete the wayfinding signage program by the end of this fiscal year. That's all I had.
All right, move forward. Unless there are any objections by council. All right, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you all.
All right. All right, we move now to new business 1. And this is Shelley Mayo, possible motion to approve revisions to the design and development manual native and adapted plant list.
Good evening, everyone. So as the mayor stated, these are updates to our design and development manual. As you may know, the design and development manual includes, includes our plant lists, planting details, site details, and architectural recommendations for the small town character overlay district. The last time we updated the design and development manual was in 2010, but it's been longer since we updated the planting lists. In 2018, the Trees and Stormwater Study made a large number of recommendations, including a couple that required updates to the design and development manual. The specific recommendations addressed are to update the town planting list to include mostly native species and exclude non-native invasive species, divide our tree species into 3 categories to match the categories for soil volume requirements, so that's small, medium, and large. The UDO amendments to change that requirement from area to soil volume will be coming in the next few months. So I apologize for the small text. This is the top half of the first page where we've kind of condensed several things. Over the course of the last 18 months, our department's been working on updating the planting lists. We decided to take the opportunity as well to make some changes that we've received over the years based on feedback from residents, engineers, developers, and staff. As a result, there's a few more changes proposed than just what would minimally satisfy the recommendations from the Trees and Stormwater project. So first off, all of these are going to be in chart form. As a clarification, we've decided to show native species that are native to the eastern half of the United States. That's essentially east of the Mississippi River. It is definitely possible to narrow this further to species that are only native to North Carolina, and then even down to the North Carolina Piedmont. However, this list was updated by staff during the time that we had when we weren't doing plan review and most of our other regular job portions, and it seemed somewhat excessive, and we just didn't have the time for it. So we decided that east of the Mississippi and trees that thrive within our agricultural zone seem to be sufficient. This list is not intended to be exclusive or all-inclusive. It's a list of trees and shrubs that we know do well in North Carolina, that we have experience with and we've seen. But we're definitely happy to review and approve any additional trees and shrubs. We wanted to make it very clear on that first page rather, that that developers or homeowners can suggest something different, and as long as it does well here, we have no problems with it. It's just that we can't list every single tree or shrub that does well in North Carolina. That would be an exhausting task. We've also added an invasive species prohibition to the design and development manual. We've based that prohibition on a list from the North Carolina Invasive Plant Council. There are many, many lists that you can find online that will have a much wider variety of invasive plants. This is the best plant that we found that's North Carolina specific. And the reason why we decided to go with North Carolina specific is that using lists from other states means that you're looking at plants that may be invasive in those other states. The conditions for growing across the country vary widely, whether we're talking about Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, or Oregon. And if we use lists that are not specific to our state, we run the risk of prohibiting a plant that might do perfectly well here and show absolutely no aggressive invasive tendencies, or and of making life a little bit more difficult for our residents. We definitely want to prohibit invasive species. We just need something that's specific to our state. If at some point someone points us to a more comprehensive list or a list that shows additional items but is based out of North Carolina, we're happy to either add it or substitute it for this one. That's not a difficult thing to do and something that we'd be happy to do. So the native and adaptive plant lists, we have what we consider our big lists, our main lists. And these are the large, medium, and small tree lists, large shrubs, and then small and medium shrubs. In addition, we've separated out some situation and site-specific lists to make things a little easier for everyone. And we did this because this is our existing plant list format. It's a great list. Our former zoning compliance supervisor who retired a couple years ago spent a lot of time on this list. It has some wonderful information in it, but it's kind of a complicated table to look at. So if you wanted to come in and find a good street tree, you first have to open it up and find the street trees, and then, when it's on a much smaller page format, it's even harder to see. So we wanted to make this a little bit simpler for people. So because of that, we've actually separated out the lists by use or situation. We have parking lot shade trees, lot screening shrubs, or parking lot screening shrubs, suggested type A buffer trees and trees and large shrubs that do well under power lines, and high quality shade trees. Some of these are designed specifically to meet a UDO requirement that we have found engineers sometimes have difficulty finding landscaping for. We've done our best to come up with what we think are the plants that we've seen do best in these situations. Like I said, though, if someone wants to propose an alternative, they're welcome to do so. But for example, this is our proposed list format. I added in here that as a parking lot shade tree list, it's intended to provide trees that adapt well to parking lot conditions and meet the requirements in the UDO. So it can definitely be used in non-parking lot situations, but that's what it's intended for. At the top of this, we've actually listed our native species first, and then our introduced adaptive species second. This has been found to be a really simple and easy trick when you're trying to encourage people to use a particular subcategory, because if someone's just opening it up and they need to pick 5 tree species and they don't really know anything about trees, but they have a plan that they have to turn in, then they'll open it up and they'll look at the very first page. So if that's the case, we want to encourage them to use native species because they're easier to maintain. They do very well in this area. They promote the health of our pollinators and our local birds and wildlife. And just generally speaking, they help us to maintain our environment a little bit better. So putting those at the top is just a simple way to encourage people to do that, to use those plants a little bit more. The proposed changes that we're showing were also shared with the Environmental Advisory Board, Tree Cap, and the Bee City Committee. They all recommended approval of them. They thought that the simplified list formats were much easier to use and look at than the existing format. They also recommended that we label specific species as bird or pollinator friendly, which we've done. Where we have some information about something, we've added, very early spring flowers, bird and pollinator friendly, or pollinator friendly, depending on which one. If we have information about a particular tree being susceptible to a disease, then we've added that. This tree is still a great tree. It's just not something that you want to plant in large masses because you don't want to run the risk that all of them will die at the same time. And individual trees are regularly not as susceptible as when you plant them together. So Planning Board heard this at their meeting last night and unanimously recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mayo. Councilman Gant.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm the question guy, and at least the first question. So one thing I noticed, the small thing, was that in the evergreen and deciduous category, there was an S for a couple of them at some like 10th page. I didn't know what that was. Maybe it's a typo. So maybe want to check it. I would think it'd either be D or E on that page. So there's an S. The second
That is
thing
definitely
was,
a typo.
okay, it was down in the shrubs, I think, or something. The other more large, I guess, comment is, did you guys consider like limiting the species so that it's like only the pollinators or only things that provide a, you know, a ecosystem service to the community as the only ones listed? Because like in this page, there's several pollinator ones, but not everyone. And this is, I'm guessing this is meant to be kind of an overall thing, not like steering people toward pollinators only, right?
Right. I've been working with the planning department member who coordinates with the Bee City Committee, and we've discussed the possibility of adding a separate page that refers on the town's website that refers people to existing lists that are already set up by groups that specialize in pollinators. This is more of a general overall list. And the reason why we did kind of toss around an idea of removing plants that, to our knowledge, don't have any strong ecosystem benefits. But there's a number of plants that may not benefit pollinators directly or necessarily birds, but benefit a lot of other species. So for example, all of the oaks that you see here actually provide a lot of food for a wide variety of ground-dwelling animals. Deer browse the acorns, squirrels eat them, things, animals that you don't see regularly but are still out there. Even the ones that, you know, some people think of as being pests, other people adore them. It just depends. But most of the trees that you see out here will have some kind of ecosystems benefit. The pollinator-friendly ones, I've generally gone with the flowering ones, but there are also several that have been identified as host plants for insect larvae, butterflies, bees, etc. So when we're thinking in terms of ecosystems benefits, it's harder to point out a plant that doesn't provide some benefit than it is to point out the ones that do. Since pollinators and birds are a hot topic right now, those are the ones that I labeled to the best of my knowledge. But it's entirely possible in the future chipmunks might become a hot topic as well, or tortoises. And I'm being mildly facetious, but not really. And they all benefit greatly from the acorns and the fruits that a lot of other plants provide, and the dropped leaves and those kinds of things. So while I definitely understand where you're coming from, we just determined that it was too complicated to find the ones that didn't provide that, and it was better to provide a larger list since they probably benefit somebody.
Thank you. Makes sense. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Councilmember Killingsworth.
So I remember talking about this back in 2017. And, you know, the amount of work that I can see that y'all put into this is amazing, and I greatly appreciate this updated list. I love the format of it. It's much more user friendly. So I like I said, I greatly appreciate what y'all have done with this list to make, you know, the comments on it, you know, are also, you know, with the pollinators and, you know, provides, you know, to birds and different things like that. That's just amazing. I think y'all done a wonderful job with this.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Councilman Mahaffey.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to add my thanks to what my colleague just said. This is a greatly improved format. It's fantastic. It's awesome to see us executing on some of the recommendations from that 2018 study. I know that's something we talked about before, so that's wonderful to see. This is better organized, more useful, and I don't know what to say except that I also would add, like, I hope this can be a living document, in the sense that as we get expertise on our citizen boards, that they feel empowered to, you know, annually or whenever, you know, continually to update the list as expertise rolls in and off the board to make this better. So, but this is awesome. It sounds like you guys were working really hard on this, and, you know, in between the other stuff you had to do, and went above and beyond to put this together. So that is fantastic, and thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
All right. And Councilmember Stallings.
I am just going to say the same thing, Ms. Mayo. Sometimes I think it's just good to hear good things sometimes. When you just do a really good job, I don't think you can ever say job well done enough. And this is just really good. Thanks to you and your staff. And as my colleagues have already said, it's very well done. It's user friendly. You know, this council, and I think a number of our residents have a lot of concern about our environment, and it's reflected, you know, in the work that you all have done. I think it's very consistent with a lot of our values for environmental stewardship. Thank you for that. And also, it's obvious we have a lot of expertise on our staff, and we also have a lot of expertise on our boards, you know, and you've consulted with all of them. And that's the purpose of it, you know, just to consult and collaborate with all of the really knowledgeable people that we have. And you've done that. And it's just a very, very well done job. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I was definitely not the only one who worked on this. I worked primarily with our zoning compliance staff because they really see how these plants get installed and thrive or fail in the real world. And I want to thank Amanda and Diane and our other planners as well, because they got to be the guinea pigs who looked at the multiple different formats to see what works for a non-plant person. I'm a gardener. That's what I do when I'm not in the office. And so for me, there were a lot of different options that worked well, but I wanted to find something that worked well for everyone. And they gave me a lot of very useful feedback. So this was definitely a group challenge and a group accomplishment.
Well done. Well done. All right. So with that, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve use of this plant list. And like Terry was saying earlier, just trying to make sure that it's a living document that's continually updated as needed. I think that's a wonderful idea. So thank you.
All right. Have a motion.
I second it, Stallings.
Okay. Thank you for the second. All right. Any further discussion before we vote? All right. Hearing none. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Council Member Killingsworth?
Aye.
Thank you. Council Member Gant?
Aye.
Thank you. Council Member Stallings?
Aye.
Thanks. And Council Member Mahaffey?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on. New business number 2. This is a possible motion to approve resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Local Government Commission to issue $42 million of GO bonds for street and sidewalk improvements, presented tonight by Finance Director Mr. Vance Holloman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, the resolution you have before you tonight represents our first step toward a bond referendum, general obligation bond referendum for street and sidewalk projects in November. The resolution indicates that the council's made a number of required findings and determinations. Probably the most significant of those is that there is a need to finance street and sidewalk projects through the issuance of debt. The resolution also directs the staff to submit an application to the Local Government Commission for approval of the bonds, to publish the notice of intent, which you have in your agenda, and also appoints a Womble Bond Dickinson to serve as bond counsel for the proceedings. Are there any questions, or I could answer?
All right, Councilman Mahaffey has a question.
Yes, I think at this time, could you give us kind of an overview as to what the process for this bond will be going forward? I know this is the start of the process, but there's several more hearings and votes to come, right? Can you kind of review for us all and the public what this process is going to be to get this on the ballot?
There'll be an introduction of a bond order. There will be a public hearing on the bonds. There will be a approval after the public hearing to go forward. There'll be a action taken by the Local Government Commission in either their May or June meetings, and then certain coordination with the State Elections Board prior to that date, and the referendum in November.
So would you say the next step is the local government commission would approve our application?
Oh, no,
And
sir. We'll submit the application will be the next step. But the introduction of the bond order and then a calling for a public hearing. This is a notice of intent, essentially, and preliminary findings. The statute is very much, because this represents the potential pledging of the taxing power. The statute is very much intends that the citizens have several meetings in which to provide input and also be made aware of what is being considered as far as the amount and the fact that it will be a pledging of their taxing power. So there's several steps we have to go through, but again, it represents the pledging of taxing power. So the statutes intend for us to have to go through several steps, and people have opportunities to let their views be known in public hearings as well as at the ballot box in November.
All right, thank you.
All right, Councilman Gant.
Mr. Hallman, thank you. I noticed in the resolution and also the intent, it didn't list the November date for the election, and I was, you may be aware of the news that there may be a delay in the municipal elections for all municipalities. I think that's all kind of unclear right now, but there's been, I think, a recommendation for that. So, will something like this lock us into a vote in November if there's no municipal election until, I'm not sure when, sometime in 2022?
Yes, sir. We've not been informed by bond counsel that they believe there's a possibility of delay of our election. It is, as I understand, the problem lies with units that elect council members by district, and we do not fall into that category. So as of this date, I've not been informed that there's a possibility of that being delayed, but we would not be locked in. For instance, if for that November election were not held, we're moved to a different date, we certainly could have that referendum on that different date. We will have the ability to move with that. And again, bond counsel has not expressed to me any concerns about us not having a November referendum to this point, however. I mean, I'm sorry, an election in November.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a point of order. I know that we had a public comment which referred to this item, and typically we would have heard that public comment at this point before we took the vote. So I was wondering if at this point we could check back with our IT staff and see if we could hear those public comments before we move forward on this item, given that it's topical.
Noted. Thank you. That is a good suggestion. So I do have word from IT that they are ready to present. So can we present that one item, IT?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
This public comment is from Darren Dexter. Mr. Mahaffey posted information on proposed bonds. Can you please provide more information on these and other questions? Why the need for these bonds? What are the other alternatives to fund these projects? For the projects listed that the bonds will be used for, when are they projected to start and when are they projected to be completed? What are the benefits for the residents? If I am going to be forced, if bond measures pass, to pay for this, how will it be a benefit for me and my family? I am looking for specifics, not just it will make our town look better. What is the status of prior bonds passed? Were all the bonds issued that were voted on and have those projects started? How will this bond be paid for? The only way is to tax residents. So what taxes will be increased to pay for this? Please provide proposed percent increases, not just proposed tax amount increases. For example, please don't just provide a 1.5-cent increase. Would like to know original amount, new amount, and percent increase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for playing that one. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Hey, Mayor, can I ask a follow up to Mr. Hallman? So several of those things were kind of about details about this, that it sounds like the way you described the path forward, it will be ample time for public comment and public hearings related to the items in it and all that stuff, right? This is just the intent, right, to do this?
Yes, sir. First step, very first step. And there'll be numerous opportunities for information to be presented. Typically, a unit of government will also have a voter education. I believe municipalities are allowed to put certain factual information out about the bonds being considered in the referendum. Not per se do a campaign, but make factual disclosures. And I believe certainly there's been a discussion of the particular projects that are being proposed for these bonds. And I believe there'll be ample opportunity for folks to receive that information prior to a referendum. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Councilwoman Stallings.
Yes, Mr. Holloman, could you just speak to maybe in terms of the resident and maybe others who might have similar questions in terms of maybe the time frame where that information might be more available in terms of those details? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, certainly the project, the bonds will be broadly defined initially, in order if there are delays in particular projects, things of that nature. So there will not be, possibility of the bonds not being used. However, the town certainly can release a list of anticipated projects during this process prior to the election, and certainly they'll have that a chance to receive that information and make a determination.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're back. Any motion to move forward?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I move we approve the resolution.
Okay. Is there a second?
Happy.
Killingsworth, second.
All right, Killingsworth, second. All right, discussion before we vote. All right, roll call vote. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Council Member Killingsworth.
Aye.
Thanks. Council Member Gant.
Aye.
All right. Council Member Stallings.
Aye.
And Council Member Mahaffey.
Aye.
All right, that passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Holloman.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we move now to presentation by our interim town manager, Mr. Ralph Clark.
Okay, sir. We'll continue the discussion on the election. First thing I have, it's been a number of conversations I've been part of over the last week about the elections, and some of the points that you brought up were part of it. The Raleigh and Cary are the two that are having significant problems, and it's pretty much based on the 2020 census and the data being available so they can adjust their wards or districts. But all the other municipalities in Wake County have concurred that they would prefer that together we would continue to hold our election in November. It's two questions that I have to respond to our group. One is, do you want to continue with the thoughts of continuing the election in November? And the second is on the early voting process. As I understand, in years past, Raleigh and Cary have pretty much driven the early voting dates and times, and wasn't much choice but by the others. However, in this case, you do have a choice, and you have been in the past doing 2 weeks, primarily because that's what Raleigh wants is 2 weeks. But if you decide you want to do a different, or we want to support a different, or even no early voting at all as an option. And as I understand from the numbers I've been getting, the early voting for a 2 week period will cost Apex about $70,000 to $80,000. So there are two questions I'm asking you is, one, do you want to proceed attempting to have the election at the regular November date? And secondly, do you want to have an early voting period? And if so, how long?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Mahaffey, go ahead with your question, and then we'll go from there.
I was just going to provide my thoughts to the question that the town manager just asked. So I would just ask everyone to keep in mind my concern about the November election is if we stay on a November schedule, Raleigh and Cary and others delay, having this sort of shift. If the headline becomes, election delayed in Raleigh, that's going to really suppress what's already going to be a pretty low turnout election. And it's going to, it'll make things difficult to get the level of engagement that we want if the headline is that they're delaying. So in that sense, there's an argument to be made that if the big guys do delay, that maybe everyone should, so we all stay on one calendar. I wouldn't want to go it alone, just have Apex stay with Raleigh, but this is something that I think everyone in Wake County should kind of figure out together. So I'm not sure what the right answer is, but there's definitely a case to be made there that there's a risk in going forward in November if everyone else is delaying.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Understand that all the other municipalities in Wake County have agreed that they want to stay with the November election. It's only Raleigh and Cary that have a problem.
Okay, understood. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. And I just, I'll just put that out there that I certainly wouldn't want us to be the only ones to delay next year. That would be kind of silly if everyone else is going forward in November. But going forward in November has the risk that we might see even lower turnout than usual. An election where we sometimes struggle to hit 15% turnout or 20% is considered fantastic. So just put that aside for now. On the early voting question, I absolutely believe that we should have early voting. For the last municipal election, we did 2 weeks of early voting. Maybe that was a little much. I made it my goal to be out there every minute of early voting, and I was really lonely a lot of the time for 2 weeks there. So I've kind of come around to view maybe 1 week is going to be okay, but I definitely don't want to skip early voting altogether. I think it's really important to get people opportunities to vote. And again, when you're dealing with what's going to be a low turnout affair, we got to do everything we can to get people involved, and having opportunities to vote at early voting is a big part of that plan.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Council Member Stallings.
Right. Just for clarification, Mr. Clark, did you say the other municipalities have already agreed that they do want to have the elections in November, other than Raleigh and Cary? Yes.
We have had a group of all the managers, and it appears everyone has come back and said that they wanted November elections. Some have varied on the early voting because if I remember, I saw one today that Fuquay has said that they didn't, if you didn't, there was no early voting, it wouldn't bother them.
Okay, thank you. I agree that if the majority wants to do November, I think it would be to our advantage to do that as well. And I absolutely think we should have early voting. And I absolutely agree with Councilmember Mahaffey, because that was our election when we were running, and it was 2 weeks of early voting. I think was long, and Mayor may want to speak to that as well. But I think a week plus the 2 weekends, I think is appropriate. And I don't know if we have to make those details decided tonight, but I absolutely do support early voting, but possibly a little bit less than what we had during the last municipal election. And I don't know how much that would affect cost either. I don't know if you have that estimates, or I'm sure you could get that for us in terms of, costs if we shaved it down a bit.
Very well, thank you. Looks like Councilmember Killingsworth was next.
Yes, I would agree that going on in November would be something I'd want to do. And I agree that we also should have early voting. Whether it's 2 weeks or whether it's, encompassing the 2 weekends and the full week, then, I would be fine with either one. I don't think it should be a very short time period. I don't think that would be fair to the voters here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Clark. I do agree, as my colleague said, if the other municipalities are going forward in November, that makes a lot of sense to me. Related to early voting, I've always been a proponent of early voting. I think that the more access you provide people to choose who their representatives are, the better. So I'm not sure about the time. I think, if I had some numbers in front of me to see sort of what works, what's the great, is it 7 days? Is it, is it 10? I don't have that information to make that decision, but I will say that it's important to have a site for people right here in Apex, as many people as we have in this town.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Council Member Gant.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple comments. One was the news stories indicated that it wouldn't be up to the municipalities to have the elections in November, that it was a state decision. So I'm not sure if what we say or what the Wake County municipalities say matters if the decider is the state legislature on that. So it may be out of our hands, I think. But the second thing was if it's not out of our hands and we do proceed in November, one thing that always annoyed me was the lack of the Sunday before the election availability for early voting that we haven't had. And, if it was, I was thinking about, when I heard the story, immediately I thought about Raleigh and Cary being delayed and us having our own destiny on the early vote, possibly as far as how we do it. It would be something like the Thursday that weekend and then all the way through to that Sunday. But there maybe is a reason why the Sunday before the election is not allowed. But I've always felt that was a missed opportunity to make sure that people who can only vote on the weekends have the full amount of the weekends available.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And Mayor Pro Tem, did you have another comment or question? Okay.
Okay, basically what I hear is that you would like for it to be early voting to cover at least 2 weekends, and the November election is preferable. And yes, Mr. Gant, that the legislature does control that. However, they are kind of looking to us for some feeling as to what's best for us.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, the next item I have, our water quality division. We've been sending out notices, and I just want to kind of let you know this is something that's an annual event. We're flushing the system. I don't know if you're getting any calls or not. Sometimes when they flush them, you could get a little disturbance in the water, but it's one of those things. It's a process that we go through to continue to clean our pipes out. And they've done it apparently every year, so it's nothing new. It's just sometimes a little bit of inconvenience for a day or so. You may get a little air, you may get a little milky water, but hopefully that's just very short-lived. Yes.
Mr. Clark, I wanted to ask you about that because I know the first day that the chlorine goes in, I noticed it when I drink the water, and I've also noticed that if I pour a glass of water and I could smell it, obviously, and then I have to let it sit for 30 seconds, the odor seems to go away. And I was wondering, is there any recommendation to let the water kind of sit for a bit and let that kind of evaporate, or is that kind of unnecessary?
Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that, because the fact that I'm sure that chlorine is one of the things that they put in this process, and we go back after the final flushing and we go back to our normal bacteria treatment. So it's probably some chlorine actually mixed in that you are not normally seeing. Hopefully, it's only just a short few days for you. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, I sent you all the departmental reports and the capital projects update, and I send these to you to be sure that I'm getting you information that you want, that's useful to you. And my comment here is, being sure that it is something that you read, you want, and it helps you do your job better. Or if there are other ways that we can help you getting information to you, if it's something that we're not getting, I'm going to have to create a list for your your next manager, hopefully to try to define what it is that you think is critical or you like to have for your decision making. So if you can at times kind of think about what I'm asking and just drop me an email if it's too much, it's enough, or if it's something else that you might want. I'm willing to give you anything you want, but I don't want to overdo, and I don't want to send you stuff just so you think I'm working. I have other things that we can do, and your future manager is going to be the same way. So it just kind of help me understand what it is that you need, if these reports are satisfying your needs.
Okay, thank you. Looks like Councilmember Killingsworth has a question or comment.
More comment. I appreciate the reports. You know, it may take a couple of times to get in the reports to determine, in my mind, you know, what is most useful versus, you know, may not need as often. But yeah, I appreciated all the reports that you sent. So thanks.
Okay. And as I said, if you think of things that might help you do better, let me know. And I'll just start making a little list for the next manager, because the fact that, you know, it's important that we get the message to you to help you make your job better or easier. So it's to help you. Okay, the next thing I have is the inspection building and the fire station 6, and Councilwoman Stallings sent me a little note today, and I'll try to respond to that as well. But yeah, we want you to be comfortable with the renderings that we sent. These are what the buildings are going to look like, based on the architectural renderings. If it's something that you don't like or whatever, you know, now's the time to do it, not next week, next month. But Councilwoman Stallings asked about the roof line on the inspections building, and what happens there is part of our design of the UDO talks about this, but that roof was designed to make it look like a government office building, matching town hall. And the other question you had was solar panels. We are designing the building to put them in. However, at this point, they're not in there because of the fact that for budget restrictions. Once we get the final design done, provisions will be there. All you have to do is put the panels in, as I understand. So we will be prepared to get you a budget amendment for that if funds are allowed. So if you have other questions or comments, please get them back to me, and I'll get them to our folks so the architect can start with them. Next thing, the North Carolina Phase 1 Volkswagen mitigation plan. We were awarded a couple grants through this Volkswagen. It's a Volkswagen settlement, and we are installing level 2 charging stations at the Public Works Operations Center and the Electric Utilities Department for the electric vehicle. So that's a couple more places that you'll have them that you didn't, and we'll see how they all work out. I think that's a whole lot in the future. How do you do these things, and you know, if the more electric vehicles we get, the more you're going to have to focus on this and how you charge for it and all these things. And so it just is a piece of information for you. Next item I have, the sewer spill. We had a sewer spill on a private sewer overflow, and it's nothing here other than just to tell you that everything's been taken care of. We reported, we've notified the property owner, and we've notified all the state agencies. So it's just for your information. COVID vaccine. We are making an extensive effort, in particular for all of our employees. And I've seen some of your comments recently about getting it to the public, and I think that's something we have to work on to get the entire population of Apex involved in getting the information to them. Wake County has a tremendous network that gets it out, but now if it reaches, I'm not sure it's reaching these people we're talking about. So we have to work on that as a piece of effort from our side. And the last thing I had a call from Congresswoman Ross this week, and we had a nice conversation, and she told me that there's a good possibility that there will be, the Congress
members will be granted earmarks this year. And it's a real possibility that funds will be available for some worthy projects. And the thing that is critical is that that could be started and completed in a pretty short order, or at least getting started. And I thought about some of the things that I've heard mentioned in work in your planning retreat and whatever. And there were a couple of things I talked about with her. And one of them is your affordable housing issue. And the other is your Safe Sidewalks program. And I'm not sure where we stand with those, but I think either one of those will certainly be a legitimate project to submit to her. And it's a pretty substantial amount of money available if we have something that's already almost pretty well prepared that we could get in a package to her so she can get approval for it and we could get it started pretty quickly. So I know that that's only a couple of things. And if you have other ideas about projects that might be of interest, because see, I've only been here 6 weeks, so I don't have all the knowledge about what's going on and what's needed. So I rely on you helping me. So if you think about something, you say, well, what about this or what about that? Put it out there and we'll look at it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Clark. And yeah, there's a lot we can add in there. I don't know what the criteria is for the earmarks, but the two you mentioned are really, I think, worthy of consideration for sure. But I'll let Ms. Stallings talk and then Mr. Gant next, and then I'll come back around.
Right, just to follow up, thank you for that. That's exciting to hear from Congresswoman Ross. And so if you would just maybe, Mr. Clark, stay in contact with us on specifics on time frame, what kind of timeline we're working on with her, so we can definitely put some items together for you. Particularly, we heard from the citizen survey, particularly about infrastructure needs, that's a real concern. And affordable housing obviously is an important issue as well. So if you'll keep us informed on timelines and when she needs things. And secondly, on the vaccine, I think it was Councilmember Killingsworth who asked about, maybe putting notifications in the utility bills. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to staff about that for folks that maybe don't have good access to technology or might need assistance. Do you have thoughts about that?
Well, that's tomorrow's meeting. That's my director's meeting, and we'll talk about it.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Stallings. Councilwoman Killingsworth. I'm sorry, Mr. Gant, you were up. My apology. Called you next.
Oops. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Clark, I'm kind of a broken record on this project, but the S line purchased by the state from CSX, and I'm not sure that's an earmark that it's more of a regional project than would be for Apex, but I think it would benefit Apex immensely. So I just want to throw it out there as many times as I can that if we can get that S line bought by the state, it'd be a game changer for our area. And I think that's a good earmarky type of project, I would think. It's not a project, I guess it's more of a purchase, but it may fall into that category. So I just want to put that forward.
Sometime when you have a few minutes, give me a call and tell me what you're talking about. I know this is probably not the right forum to do it, but if you just pick up the phone and give me a call sometime and tell me a little bit about it, it may be a way to you incorporate that in somewhere.
All right, and Councilmember Killingsworth.
So a couple of comments. One specifically about COVID vaccine information. So in our email to you, it was basically just trying to get that information that the county has available to our citizens through any means possible. So whether it's via social media, and utility flyers, because not everyone has access to social media, internet, or is technology savvy. So I think, providing that information to them in several different formats is a good idea. Whether they get it from the county or the information to call the hospitals or the healthcare systems around here, just providing them those phone numbers or contact information, I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
And then as far as the earmark program, I think that's wonderful. I think it's a good opportunity for us to present those projects that we feel like would benefit Apex's citizens the most. So, you know, what's been mentioned by the other council members on the affordable housing plan, you know, safe routes to schools, and even the Peakway, finishing the Peakway up. It's a big project and a lot of money. So something that, you know, if we get help from the federal government with that to pay for it, then I think all of those are worthy projects.
Okay. You talked about putting a flyer in a utility bill, and that if we can make that work, it's probably the one that would make sure that everyone got it, because even if you don't have internet, you get a bill. And so I'll talk tomorrow about it with the staff and see if that's a possibility that we can put a flyer in and see how we get one developed.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to respond to Ms. Dallins. The window of opportunity on the earmarks is very, very tight. She informed me that I would know either Friday or Monday of next week what was there and what the process was going to be. So, but it appears that there must be an emphasis on getting the money out and getting it moving. So,
does it look like then you need to hear from us maybe by Friday?
No, I just think that if these two projects that I identified fit somewhere in there, and there again, I'll talk to the staff tomorrow to see where we are as far as putting a package together, because a lot of times if you have something that's laying on the shelf and it's obvious that these sidewalks are already here, and I heard you say that you did an affordable housing study last year, so it may be that you have enough stuff already together that we could put together a package, really quickly and get it there and get it approved.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and that plan, was approved, so we're good. Yeah. All right, thank you for that.
And I'll keep you informed as to what once I hear from her and what our staff says, okay, we can do this or we can do that.
Thank you so much, sir, for everything.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And I'm through.
All right, you're through. All right, we do have one comment left for public forum. So if I can have IT to go ahead and play that comment, and we'll move from there. Thank you.
This public comment is from Carolina Gill, who lives at 132 Ginger Gate Drive. I wanted to address concerns within the community as well as the report submitted by the consulting firm concerning our PD. I'll start with how this meeting was switched in order to silence a large number of supporters of the Apex Police Department. I'm ashamed that this mayor and council are silencing, censoring, and not allowing all members of the Apex community the same rights and freedoms. From the town website to Facebook community groups to the right to assembly. Since March of last year, we've seen the council preaching racism, attack the police department, ignore concerns, and divide our community. My worry is that no one seems to be asking the right questions. We've seen a lot of stories on the mayor, and none have been about the town itself. Yet he's determined to find flaw in a department that put Apex on the map as one of the safest in America and #1 best places to live. I want to know, how well do you take care of your officers? In 2020 alone, 354 officers died in the line of duty. That's a 96% increase from 2019. In 2019, 228 officers died by suicide, surpassing the number on duty deaths. So while this council and mayor are busy questioning their force, what are you doing in order to help these officers cope with tensions and help them become more productive in our community? Everyone knows a company must take care of their employees. Who's there for them in their time of need? I understand there is no chaplain. Are they giving counseling? Are their needs being met? Who's looking out for them? Now let's talk about the discrepancies in this flawed assessment. The report that was conducted by a biased consulting firm.
I found the comments in some of their personal Facebook pages quite biased and disturbing. How well did you vet this company? How does this report compare to past reports? If the hiring process is conducted by HR, why is the department being criticized for who they hire? How diverse is the department? How many civilian complaints does Apex Police Department have? What specific evidence do you have of a department that is, and I quote, entrenched in racism? If the mayor questions the integrity of the officers, why don't we set the example and start questioning his integrity and service as an officer and a department head? Why be a part of promotions if you're against them? If you agree with this report and can concur with the accusation, why as a captain all those years did you not do anything about it? In my opinion, this seems more like a vendetta. You are a Black man who made it as a Black officer in a very comfortable position as an SRO in the safest town in America, promoted several times, and a Black mayor elected by a town you accuse of having a systematic racial issue and working for a department you accuse of having racial bias. I don't know anyone, regardless of skin color, that didn't have to struggle at one point or another. When you attack an entire department, you throw all those officers under the bus, even those who have maintained their professionalism. This department now has a mark on its back. All of those who want to leave and go else will have this on their record. More so, this town has a mark on its back. We have to deal with these allegations as well as a community. People have seen enough divide, not just politically, but because of the virus. We no longer talk to our friends, our neighbors, our families. What you're doing is not productive. It's not unifying, and it's not fair, and we will not stand by it.
All right, IT, is that the last comment on the public forum?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. All right, that's all the business we have for tonight. I do want to close by saying I'm proud of this council and everything you're doing. With Women's History Month, I didn't say this before, but I have to acknowledge our wonderful women here on council that I really enjoy serving with. So Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for all you do, Councilwoman Killingsworth and Councilwoman Stallings. So thank you for all you do, and we lift you up and celebrate you and all you do. All right, with that, and that's staff as well. So I do want to acknowledge our staff. All right, I don't have any other business. Good night, everyone. Enjoy your tomorrow. It's going to be a bright, sunny day. See you Thursday.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.